Hey there, Star Wars fans, Korengul here. With Star Wars Squadrons set to release in early October, I thought it would be fun to take a look back at some older Star Wars games and get a look at the history of LucasArts and its various game developing partners. What better place to start than Knights of the Old Republic? It's widely considered to be one of the best Star Wars games of all time, has endeared itself to gamers both hardcore and casual alike, and has withstood the test of time like few games before or since. As always, I stream on Twitch weekday evenings and weekend afternoons Eastern Standard Time. You can find that link in the description below. Also be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. I'm Korengul, and welcome to the Star Wars Academy. Knights of the Old Republic began its development at the dawn of the millennium. BioWare, a company known for the Baldur's Gate and Mass Effect series, took up the daunting development task, while LucasArts, known for inventing the ham sandwich and perfecting the shake weight, would handle publishing. Knights of the Old Republic happened to be one of the last games developed by BioWare before it was acquired by Electronic Arts. Relevant here because EA is also at the helm of Squadrons. KOTOR was released during what many consider to be the golden age of LucasArts, when games like X-Wing, TIE Fighter, Dark Forces, and Rogue Squadron captured our imaginations and our hearts.
I would have followed you, my brother.
The game was delayed several times due to BioWare's focus on quality of the end product.
Oh my god, I need it!
Knights of the Old Republic was finally released in July of 2003 for the Xbox and the following November for PC. Directed by Casey Hudson and written by Drew Karpyshyn, who would both go on to occupy the same roles for the Mass Effect series, the game represented the very first Star Wars RPG for console and PC, contained a star-studded voice acting cast, and would become one of the best reviewed games of all time. Although all concept work for the game had to be sent to Skywalker Ranch in Marin County, California for approval, the creative team was pleasantly surprised at how few alterations LucasArts requested of the overall product. LucasArts initially proposed two options to BioWare in terms of the foundation for the game. Either tie in Knights of the Old Republic with the events of Episode II Attack of the Clones, or set it thousands of years before the formation of the Galactic Empire. BioWare ultimately opted for the latter for greater creative freedom, and the choice of timeline was one of the first details released about the game. Pre-production began in the year 2000, though it had been in discussion as early as late 1999, and the goal was to create a game that clocked in around 60 hours of total gameplay. The creative team wanted to mesh the combat systems of Baldur's Gate 2 and Neverwinter Nights with a more cinematic experience, and this relied heavily on the round-based D20 rules from Wizards of the Coast's Star Wars role-playing game. The choice was made to develop the game on Xbox and PC due to BioWare's familiarity with PC games, having worked with the Xbox more extensively than other consoles, and a desire to capitalize on the success of the Xbox at the time. BioWare handled the game, graphics engine, and story, while LucasArts was responsible for the game's audio. In a desire to streamline the developmental process, BioWare borrowed heavily from their own Aurora engine, previously used in Neverwinter Nights, and fully rewrote the engine into the Odyssey engine, seen in the game. Due to the size and scale of Knights of the Old Republic, character animations had to be modified between the Xbox and PC versions, which was necessary because of display differences between monitors and televisions, and the PC version also supporting higher resolutions. The other main difference between the two versions of the game is that the PC version has more NPCs, as well as extra game locations, which would later be added to the Xbox version via Xbox Live. One of the biggest challenges BioWare faced was having to balance the hardware limitations on graphical detail around the scope of the game and sheer size of the environments. Knights of the Old Republic has over 300 characters and 15,000 lines of speech with a vocal cast of over 100 actors. Many of the voice acting cast played multiple characters with their lines spaced out across the game, so players would be less likely to notice the similarities. Voice production began 6 months prior to the release of the beta version of the game, and each character was recorded in its entirety in isolation. This meant the voice actors were not reading off each other live in their recorded scenes, and would linearly record the entirety of their characters' dialogue in order to account for time constraints. Most of the dialogue in the game is in Galactic Basic, but about 10% of it is in Huttese of Jabba the Hutt fame, and giving us such iconic lines as Chaskruni Dopat Slimo, not only heard in Episode 1, but forever seared into our collective nightmares. These portions were translated from English using Ben Burt's Star Wars Galactic Phrasebook and Travel Guide. For those of you who don't recognize that name, Ben Burtt is basically the god of sound in the Star Wars universe. If it's a laser blast, R2-D2's voice, Darth Vader's breathing, you name it, he made it. He literally created the Star Wars sound canon from nothing. Is Star Wars sound canon a thing? I don't know if Star Wars sound canon is a thing. Tell your friends. Some notable and prolific voice actors were signed on to the project, such as Ed Asner, Ethan Phillips, who some of you may recognize as the character Neelix from Star Trek Voyager, Phil LaMarr, Raphael Sbarge, and the mighty Jennifer Hale cast as Bastila Shan. She is literally in everything. If you don't know her, she's basically the female Nolan North. Seriously, look up her credits. They're ridiculous. The game itself is set 4,000 years before the formation of the Galactic Empire. The villain of the game is Darth Malak, Dark Lord of the Sith, a man who has unleashed the Sith Armada against the Republic and saves an incredible amount of money on toothpaste. Playing initially as Rando McFalls-asleep at bad times, the main character quickly develops into a Jedi journeying to some new and some familiar locations to put an end to Malak's plot. The beginning section of the game, set on the planet Taris, was intentionally designed to be an extended stay to allow players to bond with the location, its populace, and their stories, as well as give Malak a character-defining moment when he... Shit, this is a spoiler. When he does a real bad thing that may go as far as making you feel your own feelings. The game also contained one of the first alignment systems incorporated into a modern RPG video game, evolving the systems established in games like Neverwinter Nights, Black and White, and traditional role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons. Released the following year, Fable would be the next entry of what would become a trend in modern RPGs and adventure games, giving players newfound levels of control over their story and character development. Most of the action and combat mechanics in Knights of the Old Republic were developed using the aforementioned D20 system, which focuses on round-based actions determined by 20-sided die rolls. The player is able to choose from an initial 3 classes of Scout, Soldier, and Scoundrel, with the later choice of Jedi classes being Guardian, Sentinel, or Consular. In both cases, each class had a different emphasis, be it direct combat, action skills, stealth, what have you. Players were further awarded feats and force powers upon leveling up, much like any traditional RPG, as well as skill points to distribute to various abilities. The game provided for a great amount of flexibility by allowing players to compensate for any of their main character's weaknesses with their choice of party members having class options to balance out whatever their main character didn't do well. BioWare wanted the player to have a more cinematic experience. So all players would be visible throughout the game and would react differently based on the character's choices in dialogue and story. As the game progresses, the characters visit planets such as Tatooine, Dantooine, which was clearly not too remote for an effective demonstration in this game, Kashyyyk, Korriban, Manan, Rakata Prime, and the PC, Mac, and mobile versions of the game also visited a space station orbiting the planet Yavin. This location was later added to Xbox with the advent of Xbox Live. Knights of the Old Republic was met with widespread critical acclaim even before its release date, because of course it was. With its launch trailer at E3, the game won 3 awards for Best Game at the convention, and after its release, it would go on to win over 125 awards, including Game of the Year, Best Xbox Game, Best Overall Game, and Best RPG. However, the most important award the game won, and perhaps the single greatest legacy in the entirety of the Star Wars franchise, was Original Character of the Year for HK-47. HK-47 is the greatest thing to happen to Star Wars since the Hot Pocket. Don't at me, you stupid meatbag. I don't know why there's Hot Pockets in Star Wars, but it's a thing. You can tell your friends about that too. Seriously though, he's pretty awesome. You'll laugh. Thank me later.
Meatbags. 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 Meatbags.
One of the few criticisms of the game concerned the extensive backtracking required through already visited locations and areas to complete story arcs and side quests. Wait, that's it? Okay, literally, that's the only complaint.
The prophecy is true.
Knights of the Old Republic sold 250,000 copies in the first 4 days of its release on Xbox. Let that sink in. This represented the fastest selling game on Xbox ever at the time. The game literally sold out, had to restock, and still managed to sell 600,000 copies by October of the same year. The PC version had a much more modest performance, and it hit 470,000 copies sold, but not until August of 2006. The Xbox version in that same time frame sold 1.3 million copies, and that represented $44 million in revenue. That's $44 million for the Xbox version alone. All told, Knights of the Old Republic represents the very best of what Star Wars fans hope to see in a well-developed game. It was massive in scope and scale, not to mention truly immersive in its presentation of the Star Wars universe and storytelling in a new and exciting way. I hope you all enjoyed this look into one of the greatest Star Wars games of all time. Let me know in the comments what other Star Wars games you remember this fondly, and don't forget to throw down a like and a subscribe. Be sure to tune in to my Twitch channel, as I'll be streaming a multitude of Star Wars games to ramp up for the release of Star Wars Squadrons. Until next time, fellow nerds, the Force will be with you. Always.